So here we are, the conclusion of Cobra Kai. Part 3 of Season 6 recently came out, and boy was it a spectacle. Just to recap, in the last season, things got really intense with the Sekai Taikai Brawl, and of course, the death of Kwon Jae-sung. Now, Part 3 takes place 1 month after the Sekai Taikai Brawl, and this is basically the aftermath. Some people were ready to move on, but some were desperate to keep the tournament going. Now, in the last video, I had mentioned that Kreese was going to have guilt over Kwon's death and was going to kick off a redemption arc. And yeah, that's precisely what happened in this part, starting with the death of Master Kim at Kim Daeun's hands. Kreese had a rather deep conversation with Kim, telling her that it might be time for him to step aside, and also encouraging her to run the dojo her own way, and this is what ultimately leads her to make her decision. With the death of Master Kim, the downfall of the old Cobra Kai was already getting started, and it would ultimately go out with a bang, quite literally. And I love how they foreshadowed it with that turret scene. That was pretty clever. So the tournament resumes with Silver convincing Johnny and Daniel, as Silver kinda had an issue of his own, which again was something they foreshadowed way back in Season 5. So the tournament resumed, and Robbie got absolutely destroyed in the fight against Axel, again. In an ironic twist of fate, Robbie unfortunately injured his knee, leaving him out for the fight. Now, it is unfortunate that Robbie's arc had to end this way, but at the same time, it's nice to see the maturity in Robbie and how he handles the situation, and he has a really well-written moment with his dad. Much like his father, he had to experience a devastating loss in a tournament. But Robbie's not upset, because he knows he has things that he cares about. He has friends, he has family, and a better relationship with his father. So even though he lost, he's still winning at life. And this was a great way to convey the similarities and differences between father and son. So with Robbie out and Samantha dropping out of the fight, ultimately there's only one choice left, and that's Cobra Kai. And Johnny does take back Cobra Kai, which I loved because everything came full circle. The show started off with Johnny running Cobra Kai, and that's exactly how it ended. And it's all thanks to this moment that Johnny has with Kreese, which, in my opinion, is one of the best moments in this show. This scene, I kid you not, had me bawling. It was such a powerful scene. Seeing Johnny release all of his frustrations and angers out at Kreese, and seeing Kreese feel remorse and hugging him, what words cannot describe it. I love this scene so much. Billy Zabka better win an Emmy over this. So with Cobra Kai returned to Johnny, Miguel takes over for Kwon as captain. And the last few fights in this part are spectacular. Great closures and ending to arcs for Miguel, Tori, and Johnny. So what becomes of Kreese and Silver? Well, both Kreese and Silver at this point have nothing left to lose. And it's only fitting that these two ended up finishing each other off. Silver attempts to sabotage Johnny's potential victory by kidnapping Carmen and his newborn daughter. Or at least he wanted to. But Kreese shows up. And in a final glorious act of redemption, Kreese tells Silver that he is not going to allow him to get in the way of Johnny any longer. So the two Vietnam War veterans duke it out in a fight to the death. And while this fight wasn't as long as I expected it to be, it still was awesome. In the end, Kreese sacrifices himself for Johnny's sake, throwing the cigar at the gas canister, which causes Silver's yacht to explode, bringing about the poetic end to Kreese and Silver. And let's be honest here, we all knew this is how it was going to end for both of them. So part 3 ultimately culminates with a final fight between Johnny and Sensei Wolf. And just when things seem hopeless for Johnny, he gets back on his A game, and he wins the whole thing. Now, does part 3 have some of its flaws? Absolutely. I feel like some things were a little open-ended, but maybe that was intentional. Now, I wish we got to see what happened with Axel after the tournament. We know he left Iron Dragons after having to put up with so much cruelty from Wolf. But I do wish we got to see him make things up with the others, and maybe have him join Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do. And that leads us to the finale of this series, and how things end for both Johnny and Daniel. Throughout the whole series, Johnny and Daniel had rather clashing ideals. Johnny preferred the more aggressive side to karate, while Daniel preferred the more defensive side to karate. But in the end, we learned that the problem was never their different styles of karate. The problem was the issues they had with their senseis, and once they learned to overcome that, they finally accepted each other. Now that Cobra Kai is under Johnny's leadership again, it has the chance to be better than what it was before under Kreese and Silver. Back in Season 1, Cobra Kai looked like it was going to be more honorable and a much better dojo under Johnny. But then Kreese showed up and, well, we know what happened from there. But now, Johnny has the opportunity to change the legacy of Cobra Kai for the better, and make it a much more honorable tradition. After all, Johnny's Cobra Kai was all about turning dorks into badasses, and that's exactly what he did for so many kids in Season 1. This is what separates Johnny's Cobra Kai from Kreese and Silver's. Kreese saw Cobra Kai as some sort of war dojo, whereas Silver just saw it as a means to benefit himself through any means necessary. But now that Cobra Kai is in much better hands, its future is a lot brighter, and the whole no mercy ideology can finally be used for better, not for worse. In the end, Johnny and Daniel finally learned to coexist, to accept each other's style of karate. Even if they don't agree with it, they've learned the importance of having both. And with that, Season 6 of Cobra Kai finally wraps up, thus ending this amazing show. And I gotta say, this series was my favorite series on Netflix. I mean, I know it started with YouTube Red, but here we are now. My final verdict, 8 out of 10. Such an awesome conclusion to the series. And here's looking forward to Karate Kid Legends, which comes out in a few months. One last thing to say, Cobra Kai never dies!